Thursday, time for a whisky. Today's whisky, this week's, is Glenfarclas, 21 years. One of my favourites. So smooth. It says at the back, fruits and nuts and a vanilla smokiness, whatever that is. I really like it, It's from the Spey side of Scotland, which is sort of southeast of Inverness, where they shot, with the sort of setting of Outlander. And it's made from, I read here, freshly harvested barley which is steeped in water sourced from the heather-clad slopes of the Ben Rinnes mountain. Boy, they get poetic when it comes to Scotch. Now, the reason I chose it, apart from the fact it's one of my favourite, it's 21 years old, which is almost how old almost how old my guest was when he became a politician. James Paterson, how wonderful to see you. How old were you when you became a Liberal senator?
I was 28, so at least 7 years on your whisky.
I couldn't afford 28, so
no.
21 was my top thing, because I have to pay for these things myself. That's about $200. Do you know,
Thank you.
In that glass is $2 of tax, at least? Isn't the excise on these things just insane?
Oh, I can tell you there'll be some very happy distillers out there and watching your show tonight, Andrew, because they've come to complain to me about this very issue. And
really?
They have a good case. I think the way we tax alcohol in this country...
Look,
makes...
see, that's a puddle. And $2, I have paid $2 just to the Treasury just for that.
Well, the ATO will be very grateful, Andrew, that we're contributing to the nation's coffers tonight by having a drink. But I actually think, seriously, there's a good case for reforming alcohol taxation. It's totally random and doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, at least it might pay for your new office.
Yes.
2 years you've been a senator. Let me click to your new office, which will open only today.
Thank you.
Can you explain to me why it takes 2 years for the department of whatever it is, bureaucracy and paper shuffling, to find you an office?
Well, Andrew, it's been a big night for me. I've just put down a beer at the office opening with the great Nick Minchin, a friend of yours, and I'm picking up...
Nick Minchin, here's the Nick as well.
A whisky with you. But I'm not avoiding a question.
That's your first whisky, I think.
Yeah, look, I'm not a huge whisky man, I must confess. I was hoping there might be some gin on offer tonight.
You and Tim Wilson both. How smooth is that?
Very smooth, very smooth.
Okay, so why did it take 2 years for some bureaucrat to find you an office?
Well, the Commonwealth, in its wisdom, likes to be a model tenant, and from a model tenant point of view, it means it has to have the most environmentally friendly office possible, the best fire safety, the best security, the best disability access, and a fairly narrow parameters in terms of the square feet that an office can take up.
You started to talk like one of them,
and it takes a bit of time.
I remember you when you were a young man. Well, actually, you are now. You used to be a straight talker, now look at you.
I'm being very generous to the very hard-working bureaucrats who worked for quite a long time.
Yeah, because you've got to work with them for another office as well if you move house. Right. Next time they'll take 4 years. Take that. Honestly, 2 years. If you had gone out with a sandwich board saying office wanted, you would have got one the next day.
Yeah, I think I probably have slightly less exacting standards than the finance department has, and I probably could have done it maybe
How much are we paying for this chalet that they've got you in South Melbourne?
No doubt there will be a scandalous story in the Herald Sun in months to come about my refit.
I know this is, one of the big things about, being conservatives, you think, how do you get younger people to be a conservative? But then I said, when someone comes to me and they say, I'm a conservative, and they're too young, I thought, no, I don't trust you, because you need smack, smack, smack around your chops to knock you into line. Now, I know you say, no, you're a liberal, not a conservative, and yet there's some conservative instincts there. How come you growing up with unionists for parents, and lovely parents,
they are,
Labor supporters, mine were basically supporters of the left as well, but more middle of the road, preached at state schools, as was I, left-wing politics. What was that moment? Where was that, your road to Damascus?
Yeah, there was no reason to expect that I would turn out the way I did, and I think my parents are still a little bit dumbfounded, and they still certainly have to provide explanations at family barbecues.
I set it up so beautifully, you're not giving me the right answer, mate. The answer was, when I saw you on TV, Andrew.
Sorry. Right. Well, you weren't on TV back then, Andrew, but you were in the Herald Sun, and you may remember, as a callow 17-year-old high school student who was getting interested, maybe even 16 at the time, getting interested in politics for the first time, I wrote to you. I sent you an email telling you about what my experience was like being a student in a left-wing public school, having
I also said
centre-right
actually
views.
fishing for this, is that
No,
right?
it's literally true. And you wrote a very kind email in response, and then you wrote a column about it. And you gave me a pseudonym, but unfortunately it wasn't quite well disguised enough, and my teachers, some of them cottoned on to who I was by your description.
No, I am so
but I wasn't
sorry.
expelled. I
What did I
did
do?
still graduate. So
How did I give it away?
well, a good question. I think it describes some experiences that I had that might have been known at school. So, for example, this is going way back to 2004. George Bush had just been re-elected as US president, and in my maths class the next morning, for some reason it was of interest to my maths teacher, and we were discussing it, and I was the only person in the class who thought it was a good thing that George Bush had beat John Kerry, and she announced to all of the class, and she just happened to be the Australian Education Union rep at the school, but she announced to the whole class that we should have a moment's silence for the passing of James's soul. Because I was in favour of George Bush.
That is outrageous.
Yes, and you wrote about it. So
Oh my God, so I gave it away completely. I'm so sorry.
That's
Can
all
I
right.
apologise?
You don't need to. I've turned out okay, I think.
Yeah, but that would have been really hard. I'm really
Years of
sorry.
therapy.
Normally I think I'm more cautious than that normally, so I really apologise. Did I ask you for permission?
You did. And I granted it, so it was
So
my
it was your fault.
Yeah.
Oh, thank heavens for that. Please keep writing to me, kids. So, but from your experience then, what do you say? I must say, you know, with the IPA, which discovered you too, but with the IPA, for instance, they've got a lot of really bright young talent, and I'm seeing, when I give talks, a lot more young people than I would have expected. So it's not that bad. How do you reach out for a conservative and liberal message when all the cultural gatekeepers are preaching stuff to the left?
Well, I think there's a resurgence of probably conservatism, even more than my brand of classical liberalism, among young people. There's a real hunger for it, and the best evidence of that recently in Australia was Jordan Peterson's tour. I went along to his public lecture, and there were a lot of young people, and they were predominantly male, but a lot of young people you don't normally see at a Liberal Party event or even an IPA event. They were kind of they tattooed, they had long hair, they didn't, you know, a stereotypical. They didn't look like, you know, a young conservative or a young liberal, but they're really hungry for it. And the message that they wanted to hear was about personal responsibility and taking charge of your own life and leading your own destiny. And there's something missing in their lives that Jordan Peterson's providing that is very powerful.
What are you going to do to harness that? Because I've got the same thing. I mean, it's a slightly different, well, it is a different audience, the Milo Yiannopoulos one. The energy of the crowd was enormous. The age was much younger. What do the Liberals need to do?
Well, it's a challenge because as a politician, I can't speak like Milo Yiannopoulos. I can't even speak like Jordan Peterson. I don't have to be cautious, but there's an expectation of the tone of politics and politicians that you can depart from a little bit, but not too much. And I can't use expletives, and that's not my style anyway. It wouldn't be natural.
You don't need
but,
to, James.
But that does. There's angry people out there, and I think Milo's tapping into that, and Jordan in a different way is tapping into that.
Well, I got to say, James, like. I've heard you speak. I was an MC at one of those things, and I thought you did a really good job. You speak very, very well. 30, I think you're still the youngest there. And if people want to hear you, I think they should go and give you a go. I think you're a leader of the future. May I say that as
Thank
a
you.
sorry?
You sure can.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers to you.
Mate.
That was James Paterson. Catch up with him, I think, and keep your eye on him. Hang on now, because we're going to